Hi everyone, Snooze the Knee Sleep Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Boogie record, Everything's for Sale. This is the new full-length album from Compton, California rapper Boogie, his big breakout project for Eminem's own SHADY Records, which is turning some heads because this is a somewhat unlikely signing for the SHADY Records label. Typically, SHADY platforms artists that Eminem has some kind of personal history with or vested interest in, like 50 Cent and G-Unit or Slaughterhouse and D12. And while I'm not exactly sure how Boogie and Eminem's paths crossed, I'm kind of glad they did because Boogie is certainly a breath of fresh air to the SHADY roster. His sound and style are actually pretty contemporary and I think would appeal to a pretty wide array of rap fans, not just the lyrical miracle niche that many SHADY artists are known to inhabit. Honestly, if I had to guess what label this record was on based on its content and its sound, I most likely would have said J. Cole's Dreamville. The instrumentals on this thing are consistently chill, ranging from very laid-back and relaxing melodic trap to beats that have some very pretty and luxurious or even spacious jazz instrumentation, like on some passages of the LOLSMH interlude, or Christian Scott's excellent trumpet playing in the second leg of the album on the song Whose Fault. There's really nothing too aggressive or over the top on the instrumental side of things on this record. Generally speaking, it's a pretty smooth and cerebral listen. Outside of a couple low-key bangers, nothing that really pops out or feels super in your face. And that's pretty much also the case for Boogie's flows and delivery. Most of his rhymes are set at this very steady mid-pace. However, Boogie is no lyrical slouch though. The storytelling on these tracks is actually not that bad. Boogie can focus really well on a topic when he sets one. And on at least a few occasions, he drops a couple of flashy, dense verses like on the outro to the track Soho. Boogie's voice is also kind of nasally. It has a light rasp on it when he's singing. He reminds me a little of Chance the Rapper. There are at least a few spots on this record where I catch a few Kendrick-isms. However, the influence isn't so overbearing that you can't listen to it or anything like that. I think the similarities between Boogie and these other more popular conscious artists will only help him in the long run. And even though there are some popular rappers out there that he does remind me of, I think he does his best to separate himself with his songwriting, the tone of his lyrics, because generally the content of this record, it's pretty forlorn, it's pretty dejected, depressing, with Boogie rapping about his thin skin, his lack of confidence, being at odds with his girl in a relationship or the mother of his kid, being called a fuckboy, being essentially emasculated, seeing his friends or family caught up in poverty or violence, and sadly being too stuck in his own feelings to stand up and be a dad. Just drowning in his own negative emotions is kind of the gist of the opening track here, with Boogie addressing criticisms of, why are you rapping about this stuff? Nobody wants to hear this. Aren't you tired of saying all this stuff? And the conclusion he essentially comes to is, you're tired of hearing it, I'm tired of living it. So as you listen to this record, don't miss the point of Boogie's style and this record in general. And that's essentially to wrestle with your own emotions, the worst and the most negative stuff, in order to come to a point where you can overcome obstacles, overcome yourself. Boogie and this project definitely have a lot of good things going for them. You can tell that he's put in a lot of work with the mixtapes he's released up until this point to prepare for what he's doing now. It shows in how well he raps, it shows in how well he sequenced this project. But for something that is such an easy and moody listen on the surface, there are quite a few potholes as you travel through the record. Whether it be some of the shorter cuts on here that I think could have used a bit more size and scope, either to be more satisfying as a song or just better illustrate the point that Boogie is making with the track, like on Soho or Live 95, both of which I think reach abrupt endings. Or even the album's final 3 tracks, which I all think could have used a little bit more. These moments mostly feel like really good ideas, but they're not built out enough to the point where they feel like anything more than just like a motif or like a little interlude. And given that Boogie is cut from this cloth of part rapper, part singer, there are some cuts on this record where he is just straight singing. And Boogie's voice, it's very nasally, it's kind of underwhelming, it's not bad in small doses on the cuts where he's rapping quite a bit more, but when he's just singing from front to back on a track, it's really it gets kind of stale because his singing voice, it's not one of his biggest selling points, especially on the song Skydive. The much more instrumentally lush sequel to this track later on the record might be better, but not by much. In general, I'm not against the idea of doing a low-key or a melodic or a sung cut on this album. The song No Warning is definitely a highlight here, but that's mostly because of the background singers on the track that kind of balance out Boogie's vocal shortcomings. And finally, it's the features on this record. There's the Black feature on here, which I think is pretty bland and uninteresting. And then there's the Eminem feature on the track Rainy Days, which is so bad the hilarity of it has kind of outshined what little hype this album has going for it. People on the internet are sharing Eminem's lyrics from this song, talking about how bad they are without having a discussion about what record these lyrics are on and whose song it is. Now, as far as Eminem's delivery on this track goes, it's actually not that bad. It's one of the more slightly aggressive cuts on this record, so Eminem's attitude really kind of fits into the track. He doesn't sound as staccato or as constipated as he has on his more recent work. The sound of Eminem's presence on this song does not interrupt the song or derail the album or anything like that. You can really kind of let it slide if you completely ignore what he's saying. But goddamn the lyrics, just the opening lines. I left my legacy hurt, fucking absurd, like a shepherd having sex with his sheep. Fuck what you heard. Ugh. The closing cut on here is a pretty decent attempt at a buttery, smooth R&B and rap blend, but for the most part, Boogie sounds like a sad Chance the Rapper carbon copy, especially with that nasally rasp, especially with some of his inflections like the "you don't even smoke anymore, you don't laugh at my jokes anymore." Overall, I think this album is pleasant while it's on. The sound is pretty cool. There are some standout tracks where I think Boogie gets to the heart of some really significant personal issues. The record starts off pretty strong. Instrumentally, it's pretty tasteful, it's pretty consistent, but there are a lot of elements to it that I find kind of bland. There are some lackluster features. There are some tracks that I think are criminally short and underdeveloped. As a whole record, it blends together pretty nicely, and it's not too long, so it doesn't overstay its welcome either. It's not a demanding listen, but unless you're dealing directly with the emotional turmoils that Boogie is presenting on these tracks, it's not necessarily an adventurous or a challenging listen either. I think this album is okay and suffers from many of the same issues that a lot of debut records do, but still shows a lot of potential. I'm feeling a light to decent 6 on this thing. Transition, have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video for you to check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Boogie, forever.